Welcome to You, Me in the Counselling World, the podcast dedicated to student counsellors and the road to getting qualified and beyond. Today, I want to have a chat about what to look out for on counselling placements. Hey, welcome back. Can't believe it's October. Where is the year gone? I hope you've all had the best few weeks since I last spoke with you, and I hope that you are doing well. For those people that suffer with seasonal affective disorder, I think it's really upon us, isn't it? the darkness and the gloominess, but I hope that you are managing okay with all of that going on. So today, I wanted to make a really quick episode about placements. It's something that is a huge part of the road to becoming a trainee counsellor in the first place. It is the road to getting us qualified, and it is the thing that I think creates the most stress for counselling for counselling students even. It is very, very difficult often to find the right placement, and to actually, it's so much work. There's so much work involved in having a placement, and sometimes it's really good to check in with what we need that placement to look like. So before I do that, and before I go off and talk about that in a little bit more depth, I also wanted to talk with you really quickly about a future episode that I want to make. And it's going to be all about the route to training, essentially. So looking at whether we need to do a level 2 course, whether or not we start at level 3, what the courses themselves need to have, and maybe talking a little bit about the accreditation process for those people that do want to be accredited in the future by the professional bodies such as the NCPS or the BACP here in the UK. So if you have any questions that are related to the UK route to becoming a qualified counsellor, any burning questions that you really want to ask me, please do let me know. I will leave the link for my Facebook page, as usual, down in the show notes. Feel free to drop me a private message on there, or alternatively, please do, comment on any posts with any questions that you might have. I will leave a sort of a question post there for you in case you want to, sort of comment more publicly. But it is up to you. But your input would be really helpful. If there's anything that you really want to know about the accreditation process, whether we need to become accredited, why we would bother in the first place, and the route to getting there via training, that would be a really nice episode, I think, and something that I think a lot of people get confused by accreditation, and it is nothing to worry about. So many counsellors choose not to become accredited, and they work perfectly fine without having done it. But for the few people that do want to become accredited, it is a topic that I know can bring some level of anxiety for people. So it would be really lovely to make a sort of a meatier episode on that. But I need your questions, so please do send them in to me. Pop a question in on the Facebook posts, or alternatively, please drop me a message on my Facebook page, and the information for that will be in the show notes. So, without further ado, shall I make a start? So, I don't know why I giggle at that. It always feels like I'm having a real conversation with you, which I guess I am, but it's obviously a very one-way conversation, although I love hearing from you all. The messages that you send me and the comments that you make on social media, they're just so lovely and so helpful, and they really help keep me going on the days when I think, I don't have time and I really want to record the podcast, but I struggle so much with being so busy. When I receive your messages, it makes me think, this is why I do it. So thank you so much for all of the support that you give to me. I can't thank you enough for sticking by me. And I know that I'm not as regular posting on here as I would like to be. But I do know that when I do post something, that you're all there and you're all willing to listen and ready to listen and learn. So a huge thank you to every single one of my lovely followers and listeners. It's just a real privilege. So, enough of me rambling on. Let's have a think about placements then. So for every counsellor on a level 4 diploma course or above, you will have a requirement for you to become a qualified counsellor that you'll need to do a minimum of 100 counselling placement hours. Now, those hours take place out working in organisations within the community, and they are working with real clients. So no more of this working with your colleagues in skills practice. It now is about real clients. And so it is the most crucial part of your training in so many areas, because it's where the learning really lands with you and really takes place. You know, we can teach you so much at college, can't we? We can teach you how to use the skills and how to use the core conditions and all of the theory. We can do that till the cows come home. But actually the real learning takes place when you try to apply that to a real client session and have a look at what that's like for you. So it is absolutely crucial. It's a minimum of 100 hours. Some courses ask for more, but the vast majority of level 4 diplomas seem to ask for 100 hours. And of course, some of the higher level education, you don't always have a placement element on there, so you'd need to check with your training provider as to whether or not this will qualify you to work with a counsellor. If you don't have a placement element on the course, you need to check what that is. And we have had occasions at the past at the college where people have done university level courses and then have come to us and said, I've done this course, but now I can't actually practice because I haven't done the 100 hours. So please do check on the requirements for that and just check with your training provider just to be sure that what you're doing is going to get you to the place where you want to go. So that's a little bit about a placement and why we have it for those of you that are not aware of that. So the next thing we have to think about is when do we do the placement? So of course this is something which would be very much weighted upon your training provider or college to sign you off and say, this person is ready for placement. Placement providers will ask for that proof. They'll need proof that you've been signed off and that you're actually safe and ethical and ready to begin to work with people. Nobody is sat in the room with you. It's just you and your client. So, of course, because of that, it's really important that counsellors are ready. Students are ready for this. And so your training provider, there's too many providers here, your training provider would be the one that would actually sign you off. And for most people, that happens around the beginning of year 2, sometimes at the end of year 1, and, at some point in year 2 moving forward, depending on when you're ready. So once you're signed off, you might then be able to celebrate a little and think, that's great, I'm ready now, I'm in the place where I can go out and work with the public, which is just amazing and such a privilege and such an honour. It's always the best feeling. I, as a tutor, absolutely love signing people off. It really, when somebody's really earned that and they're really ready for it, I find that to be so rewarding. So as a tutor, it is lovely, but also be aware that your placement provider will need you to be signed off and they won't allow you to work with clients unless you are signed off. So if your college for some reason don't yet think that you're ready, it's not necessarily a personal thing. Sometimes it can be about, where you are in your life as well, in terms of whether or not you're able to handle a placement at this time. It's not always about how good you are. And I like to sign people off when they're ready, both from a training perspective, and I can see that they're safe and ethical to work, but also when they are feeling good in their life. They've got big life events going on or have just had a big bereavement, for example, that wouldn't be the best time to sign somebody off to go and work with the public. So it's really important to have an awareness of that and to keep talking to your tutors. Because I think unless you can do that, have lots of open dialogue. We're learning to be congruent, aren't we? Be congruent with your tutors, because I think that's the best advice I can give you. So what might you be looking for in terms of your placement? Well, I think this varies. As per normal, there's sort of no one size fits all here. Some people like to look at this based upon a financial need. They might think, well, actually, I can't afford to pay for any additional supervision at the moment, so I need a placement provider that's going to provide me with all of my supervision requirements. And if you know that your placement provider is paying for that for you and covering the supervision cost, then it can take a real weight off of people's shoulders. We know that it's not cheap to train. We know that it takes a lot of time, and sometimes people just cannot afford to pay an additional sum each month for supervision. So if that's really important to you, then maybe think about looking for placement providers that do provide supervision free of charge. Most colleges will have a list of placement providers that they're already kind of linked with. So always have a look at your college list first of all, to have a look at the placement providers that are already set up as placements, because actually from a college perspective, the college will have hopefully have done their due diligence around making sure that they're going to be able to provide everything that you need, including things like reports and paperwork, if that's what your organisation requires. Be really mindful of that in terms of supervision. And I don't think it's the only criteria. I think it's important that the vibe feels right as well. So when you go to visit placement providers, it's about making sure that you are happy there. You know, you feel comfortable, you feel accepted, and you feel like you're going to be supported. I think that sometimes it can be easy for placement providers to say, yeah, we could take students on, but they do need to also be prepared to offer some mentoring, to offer a place for you to talk if you get really stuck and you need some help. But also that support in terms of the admin support is really important, because there will be log sheets to sign probably, there will be placement reports to write, there will be agreements to fill in. So knowing what the requirements are of your training organisation will be a really big help here, because it's important that you get the paperwork that you need. If your placement is not great with paperwork, that doesn't mean to say you can't work with them. But it does mean that you might need to spend a little bit of time regularly chasing them up and making sure that you get your needs met, because there is no point in you doing all of those hours for them to find out then that actually that they're not able to complete the paperwork that's needed. So be really upfront about it, because often it's that paperwork that you need as proof that you've done it in the first place. So have a think about their admin support and what they're like. The next thing that I always think is really important is, how is this going to fit into your world logistically? So from a logistics point of view, how are you going to make this work? Because we can have the best placement in the world, right? We can have people that provide supervision, they've got great admin support, they've got a nice influx of clients coming in. But if it's going to turn you inside out and upside down trying to get there because your life is so hectic, and you're having to travel further than you wanted to because they feel like the perfect fit, it's one of those things where sometimes things feel and look better on paper than they do in reality. So really have a look at that. How far are you having to travel? What's your maximum kind of distance or travelling time that you are prepared and able to fit into your life to go and make this happen? Sometimes they have other requirements as well around how long you're expected to stay there for. So if you are a person that's not wanting to make a large commitment for the future, then have a look at what their minimum is. For some, it's a year, and I've heard of people recently having a 2-year commitment. So placement provider is saying you'll need to stay here for a minimum of 2 years, which is a really long time, and that might take you well beyond your training hours. Your training hours may be well and over and done with. That's probably the better way of saying it. 100 hours done, and you'll still be required to continue to work there. And it does go without saying that even once you complete your 100 hours, if you're working with clients actively, you can't obviously just up and leave once you hit your 100 hours. You would need to make sure that you are seeing through the contracts you have with your clients right through to the end. And so most people will go over their 100 hours, which isn't a bad thing, I don't think. It's all good experience, isn't it? And so long as you're not feeling like you're excessively having to go over that, I think that's a good thing. Just in case you have had a problem with, not having enough supervision one month and you ran out, you're losing some hours. It's nice to have some extras at the end that you can count instead. I hope this makes sense so far. It's quite complicated, isn't it? There's quite a lot to it. But that's exactly it. Placements are a lot. And I think if you could find a way to make this fit more easily into your life, I think that will sort of stand you in really good stead for making sure that this doesn't become too overwhelming. Now, I live in the real world, right? And I know that you'll want to get your hours done, and it's important for your qualification that you do. So I know that we can't have everything absolutely perfect. But what I do know is showing up as your best self will only happen when you can fit this in properly. And if you're at a stage in your life where you're not able to fit this in properly, you need to consider whether or not this is the right time to start a placement. It might be that waiting a few months until something changes, perhaps with your kids or your family. It might mean that makes it feel better. And I always say to our students, this is not a race. Everyone's life is so different. We can't compare ourselves to others. We just have to do it when it feels right for us. I think that is the most important message, really. Don't beat yourself up. Don't make this into a competition with your peers on your course. It's not. It really isn't. It's about making sure that you do it at a time that is right for you. And there's something so freeing about being able to say, this time is my time. I've not been ready till now because of other life events, or because of my situation at home, or because of my job, or because of my children. Being able to say, when the time comes to be able to say, this is my time now, there's something really freeing about that, I think, anyway. Reassuring as well. It's worth bearing in mind, okay? So the next thing I think that's really important about placements is the clients that they're working with. So will you want to sort of specialise in a particular area? So for example, domestic abuse is one that you might want to go into, or addictions, that type of thing, or supporting parents. So you might have a certain niche of clientele that you're going to be having coming through the placement, or some other placement providers might be more general. So they might be having just basically offering a range of low-cost counselling services for people who want to self-refer into the service. And then that way you'd get a real mixture of the types of clients that you're working with. So it depends on what is important to you around the experience that you want to have as well during your time on placement. I think always being upfront about the paperwork is crucial, but I've already covered that. And I think for me, making sure that your morals align with them. You know, what are they trying to do? Do you really like the manager when you meet them and you go for an interview? Do you like the placement manager? Do you feel like they're somebody that's going to lift you up on your journey a little bit? Because it is important, isn't it, that we feel confident? And I talk a lot about confidence on this podcast, but it can be such a challenging role to play when you're out working for the first time. And it's so lovely to have a team of people there that you know that you can vibe with, you know that you're being supported with. It's also always worth knowing and understanding about whether they have a good influx of clients coming in. If they haven't got very many clients needing the service, that will really slow down how long it takes you to get your counselling hours. And also asking them, how many counselling hours am I expected to do per week? And make sure that aligns with what your training provider need as well. A lot of training providers will have a maximum that you can do per week. And we need to make sure that those two things will align together. So those are my thoughts really on placement, and it's just wanted to give you some things to think about for the times when you're starting to get close to thinking about placement. I just thought I would plant some seeds of what's going to be important to you. And you'll all be different, and that's okay. It really is okay. But start to have a think about it, especially as you approach that time in your training course where you're starting to get ready to be signed off. It's always a good idea to know what organisations are out there, what type of services are they offering, and when the time comes to be interviewed for a placement, remember you're interviewing them too. You're wanting to make sure that this is a place that you want to work free of charge, and for a good reason, of course, but you are working voluntary, so you want to make sure that this is going to be a place where you can thrive rather than just survive. And that feels like a really nice way to end it, doesn't it? Thrive rather than survive. Okay, well, as I said earlier, please do let me know about any questions you have around accreditation and training generally. I'm really happy to try and help piece together a podcast episode that helps as many people as I can. In the meantime, if you'd love to leave me a 5-star review on the platform of your choice, I would massively appreciate it. Your support really does mean the world to me. And I hope you're having the most wonderful week. Take good care of yourselves, everybody. And I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.